Greetings. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of B. But look, before we get started, Anchor. Have you heard of Anchor? It is a fabulous tool to help you get started as a podcaster. Now, look, if you're new to this field, Anchor helps you get the word out. They'll distribute your podcast. They make it easy for you. You know what? You can just download the free Anchor app, or you can go to anchor.fm to get started. And that's ANCHOR.F as in Frank, M as in Mary to get started. You want to start today. Greetings, podcast listeners. Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, this is Christine, and I am so excited to have you on today's B podcast. Well, there is so much that I can say about this topic. So let's dive right on in on today's episode, Be a Friend. So, it went a little something like this. I would say that your actions are not what I would call a best friend, she said. And I could tell by her actions leading up to that very statement that she made to me that she was feeling some kind of way before she ever said a word to me. You know, when you got that best friend, you got friends, you know your peoples. You know when something's wrong, you know when something's bothering them, you know when they got an attitude, when they mad, when they sad, whatever. And I already knew before she ever said that to me that something was going on. In my heart of hearts, before the conversation that day, I was like, something's off. Something is amiss. Somebody, my friend, is upset with me. Like, I already know it. She ain't told me, but I could tell, but by the way you acting, something's going on. And so, today's topic is be a friend. Like, what does it mean to be a friend? Like, and I gotta be honest and tell you like it really T.I. is. Friend, right? Well, she and we had been friends for a while, a number of years to be exact. And she had my back in difficult times, and I had hers just the same. But let her tell it, that was not the case. Okay? And she had been keeping count. Okay? Like 1 and 2 hash, or 1, 2, and 3 and 4 hash, whatever. Like, dude, chick had been keeping count on me. Like, you ain't done this, you ain't done that. That ain't it. And so I remember that day she came over. She sat on my couch and literally recounted through our conversation all of the ways that I did not fit the mold after years of friendship. You hear me? And so let me just say, when you think, and I don't know, maybe you've been there, maybe you've had an experience of sorts, kind of similar to this, but when you think you've been a good friend and you're hearing somebody tell you you've not been, it's incredibly humbling on multiple levels. Now, I will say that day I can remember sitting on my couch and I already know my whole face, okay? So my eyes probably got real big because I'm thinking, what in the whole world? You hear me? I'm thinking to myself, I'm wondering, I already knew that my friend wasn't happy with me. She was acting a little different. And I'm like, okay, so I already knew that. So this conversation, I already knew something was coming up. I felt it, all that. And so I'm sitting on the couch And I'm like wondering to myself, okay, what the whole heezy is really going on? That's what I'm thinking in the back of my mind because I can't. I'm like, I'm shocked. 1, 2, and 3. Like we recounting and we going back of what was said, back then in that year and what was said in that year and da da da. And I was just like, uh, have you ever been in a moment where you don't really have the words to say? Dude, a chick was there. And I was like, okay. So the whole time, I continued to listen and I gave my time and my input and attention and care and concern into everything my friend was telling me. And, as I mentioned before, have you ever found yourself in a situation that was pulling at you and the only thing you could do was listen and just be there? In that moment, that's where I was. There. Just there. Not all the way, completely understanding all, but I certainly knew that my being there and being a friend is what I needed to do and to be at that moment. Now, pause on that. Think about that. Every single one of us has ego, man, woman, boy, and girl. And when you are confronted with situations that hit your ego head on, that you were not prepared for, what do you do? Do you let that ego rise? I always tell my twin sister, I have said this to her, and I've said this to many people because it's my own kind of philosophy. When you have relationships in your life and you've got friendships and sisters and your spouse or significant other, the relationship has more valuable. It has more value and it's more valuable than you being right. So in that moment, as I am listening to my friend literally go back and recount, this wasn't right. You said X and Y and Z and A and B and 2 and 1, 3 and 4. I'm like, what? So ego had to take a back seat because being a friend does not necessarily mean that your ego gets to be addressed or your ego gets to be stroked. It is not always about that. And so again, in that moment, I just knew I wasn't quite understanding what was going on, but it wasn't about me. It was about me being a friend that was there to listen and to give some time and attention. And so as my friend was talking and as she was wrapping up, her thoughts and her feelings, I remember taking pause to recognize that some of the things that she shared were indeed true. I didn't mean for them to come off that way, but I could see where she was coming from, that, some of the things she was saying were true and some were misunderstandings. Indeed. And I took the time to acknowledge her thoughts and her choice at that moment to pause, so to speak, on our friendship. Now, if you've dealt with any type of disconnect in any type of relationship where a friend said, what, it's been cool, it's been real, but I'm gonna need to pause on you. What? Yes, boo, I'm gonna need to pause on you for a hot minute. Or if you've gone through any type of a breakup or anything like that, it's like, hold up, you know what, we're good, but I'm gonna need to pause on that. I heard everything she said, and I already knew that she was moving in that direction because, again, we've been friends for a number of years, and I kind of saw all that, and I knew something was up. And I will say, for me, this was the first time I've had this sort of experience with my friends. These my peoples. This my sister. Any type of experience of this sort. And I was receptive of what she shared. But here's the thing. I did not change my position. And you say, Christine, what do you mean you didn't change your position? What I mean is that I was still her friend. In that moment, she was not happy with some of the things, and she was upset about that. And so she shared with me what had been on her heart and what she had been dealing with for a little while that she hadn't brought to my attention. And so I listened, and I'm like, this is my friend. This is my sister. And in that moment, I apologized to her for my actions, and I asked for her forgiveness. You know what? Man, you know what, woman? We are in a day, we are in a time where, in our relationships and in our sisterhoods and, with mom and your sister and whoever, we don't always get it right. Those words that we say, they ain't always right. And so you have to be willing to be a friend and bump them gums and say, you know what, I'm sorry. You know what, please forgive me. I apologize. You know what, I see that. I take 10 steps back, 2 steps back, whatever. I see that. Forgive me. And so in that moment, I apologize, and I asked her to forgive me. And, after she left my house that day, I can remember I sat in my living room and I thought about the experience that I had just had with her. And in that moment, I realized that I was a better woman and a friend for having had the conversation with her. And how, you might ask? Couple things. First, I recognized that the position of my heart, the posture of my heart did not change. It was wide open. I was willing to receive what she was saying. And in the conversation, I didn't understand everything and where everything was coming from. But yet my genuine care and concern for my friend never wavered. You hear me? Never wavered. Because I'm like, whether she throwing blows or not, it don't even matter. I am here for my friend. I'm going to hear. I'm going to listen. Number 2, the willingness to hear someone else's quote unquote bad misunderstandings of me took strength, peace, and fortitude. Because that ego I talked about before, boo, we all got one. Ego can be on lock. Sit down and be quiet, because this ain't about you. But being able to see someone else's point of view and see where I can improve is always a plus and a win for the friendship. And then being able to recognize and grow and be mindful on how I can be a better friend has been the absolute jewel to our ever evolving sisterhood. So you got to be able to see and to hear and to understand, this ain't about me. This is about the friendship. Yes, I hear you, sister. I hear you, friend. You know what? I can see where I can be better, because I am going to be a friend. And in this day, yes, today, there are many people who are going through various life situations and circumstances. And again, this ain't about your pedestal of being right. This ain't about your pedestal of having your ego stroked. Being a friend is so much more important than it ever has been before. It's not always about the commonalities and butterflies and that kind of thing. Sometimes it's about having those hard conversations, even those that you don't understand, and figuring out a way to be better for the sake of someone else that has nothing to do with your ego. And when I think about all of that, the good book tells us that in order to have friends, we must first show ourselves friendly. Being a friend is about being there to listen when there's nothing else that you can do. Now, take care for your thoughts, heart, and mind, and be a friend. You've got every single thing it takes to win. You are a joy. You are a jewel. And who you are is needed in this world. So keep buzzing in the world because we need you to be